They called Earth the runt of the galaxy. No fleet, no ambitions, barely a blip on Imperial radar. We flew in garbage trolleys. They owned planets. We begged scraps. We were herd fodder. I stood on the outer deck of the Valiant, fingering the sweat-streaked railing as we jumped into another cross-sector relay. Deck plates vibrated under my boots. For months we'd kept her secret. Earth's hidden supercarrier. To them, it was just myth. To us, our last fist in the universe's eye. The briefing flagged me Chief Tactical Officer. A joke. I hadn't even commanded a dinky scout, let alone a supercarrier capable of launching waves of stealth drones and quantum fighters. But desperation makes heroes out of pantry rats. And when the old empire pressured us, blockading our trading lanes, jacking tariffs on raw materials, we answered with words. Now, after the 5th trade embargo, Earth was done talking. On integration deck, engineers huddled over fuse banks. Overhead, through thick translight windows, haze-racked farmland rolled into hyper-farm complexes. We'd hidden the Valiant in plain sight. Under our own factories, through base deep under the crust, shielded by an entire agricultural shield grid. Her hull wasn't just steel. It was centuries of smarts, misuse, scavenged tech, and more than one stolen empire design. We were waiting for Sector Prime's ceremonial gala, Emperor's Golden Parade. They'd swung into our system with their fleet, 6 battleships, 12 dreadnought-class escalators, and a dive wing ready to carpet-bomb cities. They thought scare meant submission. They were wrong. My second, Caden, pounded my shoulder. He didn't calm, he roared. Eyes open, eyes sharp. I've got fighters prepped, systems green. His teeth were clenched, small beads of blood spooling from cracked lip. They'd tortured him months back, found intel in his skull. He didn't tell me what broke him, didn't need to. He was solid again, angry. Keep your fire on standby till I give the green, I told him, voice low. We'd rehearsed it 100 times. Main objective? Hit the flagship's shields before their wow-decker even knew we existed. Break status quo, show them what Earth could do. Consoles flared, red icons bloomed on strategic overlays. I traced the formation of the enemy fleet. Classic diamond punch. Capital in center, escorts in jockey positions, fighters circling. Nothing clever. Predictable. Good, I said. Beneath the echo of my own voice, I heard the heartbeat thrum of the ship, the pulse of antimatter, drives. The cybergenics AI, coded together with stolen Imperial algorithms, whined in the back of the system, keeping sequencers primed, relays synced. Fed comm traffic, radio buzzed. Pinnacle-class flagship Dominus Felix was giving a speech about Earth's futility. Typical. Their drones spammed propaganda through secure channels. The voice, calm and disdainful. Earth's rebellion is a child's tantrum, a localized inconvenience. Submit or be caged. Typical. Caden uncapped his throat mic. We won't submit, not this time. I didn't reply. I scanned the feeds. The transit window opened. The AI confirmed cloak integrity at 99.8%. We were hidden. Even Imperial spectrometers wouldn't register us, not until we fired. My palms sweated. I gripped the rail. Archaic, Terran, physical. The world I came from begged us to escape. Not stand and fight, not here, not like this. But we were all scarred. The Empire had crushed colonists outside Sol, vaporized lives, sold tech licenses only at sky-high prices, bent governments until they collapsed. Earth was exhausted. They fouled the cradle we called home. We'd sworn, unspoken oath, to hit back. Sector Blinken 5. Cluster pack ready? Drone bays at launch threshold? Barked Lieutenant Voss, the only one with the cojones to talk like that within earshot of his superiors. He carried a blast scar over his cheek. exposure to battlefield shield overtones. He looked like a fist with a face. Voss grinned. That grin meant trouble. I activated tactical terminal. Buttons lit under my fingers. Launch in 4. Silent approach vectors 63 left. Drone strike protocol alpha. Target shields of flagship. Use quantum scram. Cut their regenerative matrix. Caden's voice. Counting. 3. My heart thudded inside my ribcage. A primal drum. To fight with hidden might. Take dogs by surprise. Challenge the Empire's myth of supremacy. For my brother who died under blockades. For my sister who starved. For the millions whose cries washed over me in broadcasts on illegal channels. For every weeping parent in refugee camps. 2. Silence. 1. Launch. Around me, the Valiant shuddered from the release of 50 stealth drones and 6 quantum fighters. They slipped from the hidden hangars, bodies lit by internal photonics. I watched them, each one a seed of retribution, sliding through the void like arrows loosed from a warbow. Sensor feeds lit up. Drones went dark, vanished from all spectrums. Fighters cloaked and accelerated, target approach times calculated in seconds. Through the deck window I saw the flagship's shields glow, prepared, unmoved. Do they anticipate this? I wondered. Doubt mixed with defiance. Then, at precise moment, the flagship's shield flickered. First strike vector hit point blank. Plasma pulses hammered at the shield grid, overloading the polygon nodes. Within seconds, there was a visible shimmer, like air over a hot road. Then shields collapsed. A drone warped through the breach. Its payload detonated, white-hot fury against armor and bulkheads inside the flagship. Alarm bells lit the tactical console. Imperial formations jittered, fighters skimpered. I felt the electric crack in the bunker of silence. The Empire's golden parade ground was now the epicenter of shock. Shields down, ordering full volley, I roared, voice raw. Disbelief cracked in Imperial comm chatter. They rerouted energy to shields. Too late. Drone swarm erupted like locusts. Hundreds of high-explosive micromines, smart enough to eat control nodes. The flagship buckled, systems failing. Outside, our launch complexes disgorged fighters, 6 quantum stealth craft primed for Phase 1. Caden tapped me. Now. I gave the order. The Valiant coughed. Massive cannons rolled out of armor casings. They glowed with built-in grav-charge amplifiers. Aqua blue light spilled over the deck walls. We were breathing, alive, fury incarnate. The flagship shuddered. A single titanic blast punched through her heart. Deck plates melted on viewports. Fire bloomed like phoenix wings. The errant wings of our drones surged into her bowels, a multicolor crescendo of destruction. We screamed. At once, crew raised clenched fists, tore off helmets. Their roars pounded through the corridors. I exhaled slow. This was the moment we broke the iron chain. War was ignited. The Empire would come, but they didn't know how we'd hit. They didn't know who we were. All they heard was the scream of steel mid-collapse. Earth just stepped on their throat. We were no longer rags. We were a knife. Above us the flagship groaned, tilting. Smoke roiled from breached turrets. The companions in the diamond formation fanned inward, trying to cover their bleeding mate. Their escorts strafed our position. I watched radials of interceptor wings surge. Caden, scramble north fighters, Alpha Wing, cut crossline formation near relay, Voss, shield link to drones, keep them dark. We were seconds away from containment, seconds from legacy, seconds from whether Earth survived or died as a whisper. But now we stood in the open. The Empire would strike back, with warships, with nukes, with extermination squads. That first volley was our message. Earth is not fodder. A trembling line of silence, the Empire's flagship, wounded and crippled, started surrender protocols. In that pulse of quiet, I felt it. The tidal shift. The way a man's soul rattles when he digs into a riverbed and pulls out a bone, ancient proof he's not alone. We'd sparked a revolution here. Today, seconds ago. This blast in the absence of radar, a supercarrier that shouldn't exist, and the Empire trembling, but the war was just starting. And we had sanity left only because we still breathed. They didn't come in peace after that. The Empire didn't do peace. They did punishments, calculated, surgical, cruel. Hours after their flagship burned in orbit, their response began. Not with words, not even a warning, with coordinated atmospheric strikes on Earth's outer colonies. I watched it happen on the lower monitor in the command pit. Grainy footage, blurry but real enough to drive nails into the gut. Fields reduced to ash. Transit towers toppled. Civilians running with mouths open wide but no sound. Only silence on the feed. 1 strike, 2, 8. Then dozens across Europa, Mars Terra farms, and the Io stations. Revenge ops, Caden muttered beside me. They're showing us what happens when a slave gets a backbone. My fists clenched. I wanted to hit something, anything, but the ship rumbled with quiet fury beneath me, like it was holding its breath. Valiant wasn't just steel and reactors anymore. She was part of us. Our rage wore armor now. The Empire thought they could slap us back into place with orbital shock strikes. But what they didn't know was that Earth hadn't built 1 carrier. We'd built 3, and Valiant was only the loudest. Status on sisters? I asked without turning. Voss's voice crackled through the intercoms. Resolute launched from the Antarctic shell 19 minutes ago. Oathkeeper still dormant in the Amazon cradle, awaiting deep orbit sync. Good. Redundancy. The one lesson we learned from our years beneath their boots. Never place hope in a single blade. Hide the others. Let them draw blood when the time comes. But there was one thing we hadn't prepared for. Traitors. The Empire didn't just attack our colonies. They activated loyalists. They'd planted them years ago. Scientists, technicians, even family members. Paid off, chipped, or mind-burned into submission. We didn't know how many. All we knew was that when we celebrated our first victory, they were already inside. I learned it the hard way. 15 hours after the flagship fell, our internal systems short-circuited. Cloaking tech started glitching. Drones scrambled on wrong coordinates. Our power relays tripped on nonsense override codes. Sabotage. I found the bastard in the maintenance bay. He was wiring an overload chip into our reactor synchronizer. Would have killed half the lower decks. He had my brother's old crew badge. Wore it like a badge of shame. Said nothing when I caught him. Just stared with wide, empty eyes like he didn't even recognize me. I dragged him to the lower chamber myself. Didn't let security touch him. "What did they offer you?" I asked. His lips trembled. "Freedom." They said Earth was a sinking rock, that they'd give my son a future, education, air, a real life. I laughed. It was hollow, bitter. At the cost of every other man's son? He didn't reply, just lowered his eyes. I left him in the isolation cell, sealed and silent. Caden wanted to space him. I stopped him, not out of mercy, but because I wanted the others to see what betrayal looked like. I broadcast the footage of his capture shipwide. No edits, no dramatic music, just reality. Then I gave the crew a choice. Execute him or not. Unanimous vote. They picked death. We aired the sentence next morning. He walked out onto the airlock platform. No scream, just silence as the void took him. Voss said nothing, just lit a cigarette. The crew. They were quieter after that. No more jokes, no more nervous laughter, just purpose. Meanwhile, the Empire was gathering. The intel we intercepted told us they were calling it a purification fleet. 6 sectors worth of warships, an entire quadrant of their military machine, was heading toward Earth. The final solution. They didn't intend to retake us. They meant to erase us. We had maybe 3 days. That was when High Command finally called. I took the call from an encrypted node in the core room. Our so-called council, half generals, half cowards, spoke in pre-recorded responses, synthetic voices meant to protect identity. They asked about the status of the carrier. I told them it had barked and drawn blood. They asked if we'd stand down and negotiate. I told them to shut up. I said we didn't ask for their permission when we built Valiant, and we sure as hell weren't asking it now to fight. One of the council reps, some polished accent, probably bred in lunar palaces, told me that provoking the Empire would doom Earth. I stared into the camera lens and said, "It's already doomed if you bend." Silence followed. Then one of them whispered, "Then God help us all." Number not God. Oath, rage, memory. I briefed the crew that night. Gathered every engineer, fighter pilot, tactical officer, and deckhand into the echoing hangar chamber. No chairs, no titles. Just men and women ready to kill or die. 3 days, I told them. That's how long we've got until the largest Imperial armada in known history comes to erase us. They'll burn the sky. They'll crush cities. They'll make examples of every rebel child they find. Silence. They think we'll break. But here's what they don't know. I pointed to the massive hologram of Valiant's blueprints spinning above us. They don't know this ship can cloak entire cities. They don't know we have mimic tech that lets our carriers project false locations. They don't know our new drones aren't just weapons. They're code carriers, designed to infect, hijack, and sabotage their capital ships. I stepped forward, fire in my voice. They don't know that we've turned Earth into a minefield, that every colony they think they hit has a bunker 10 stories deep. They don't know that this ship has protocols we haven't even tested. AI routines that think like warlords, not politicians. I scanned the room. And most of all, they don't know we're not scared anymore. Voss punched the air. Caden grinned like a man about to jump from a cliff. The rest, they roared. The next 24 hours were chaos, but controlled, the kind that meant action. We loaded missiles, upgraded our mimic drives, sent encrypted pings to sister carriers, Resolute confirmed docking with the lunar cannon array. Oathkeeper was hiding beneath the Amazon basin, underwater, waiting to surface. The trap was set. All we needed now was the Empire to walk into it. And they would. Because arrogance was their religion. They believed Earth was soft. They were about to learn the taste of steel. The day they came, the sky bled fire. You could see it even from orbit. Ships blacking out stars, dropping into formation like an anvil falling through silk. Their warpath cut through Saturn's rings, tore through every comm line we had near the Jovian perimeter. Nothing elegant about them. No grace, just mass. Brutal and overwhelming. I watched from the bridge of Valiant, arms folded, jaw locked tight. Over 500 Imperial warships, 6 fleet-brain dreadnoughts, the Purification Armada, a force meant for extermination, not conquest. They didn't want to rule Earth. They wanted it wiped. Vanguard ships entering Earth's exosphere, Caden said, voice flat, calm. The kind of calm that meant every muscle in his body was ready to snap. No negotiation frequency, just targeting arrays and lockdown protocols. They're not here to talk, I muttered. They're here to make an example. We weren't going to give them the chance. The trap was set, and they'd stepped into the mouth. Valiant was silent, cloaked, drifting just outside the moon's shadow, invisible on every spectrum that mattered. Beside us, under the moon's crust, Resolute hummed with rage. Oathkeeper was already moving into high Earth orbit, her mimic drives projecting a fake signal from Mars orbit, an old Terran tactic called the shell game. The Empire saw what we let them see. They were chasing ghosts. But we had one shot. one window. Because the moment we revealed ourselves, they'd come with everything. My fingers hovered over the command interface. The command center pulsed blue with tension. Voss stood by the rail, watching me with fire in his eyes. He hadn't spoken for hours. He didn't need to. AI sync complete, Caden confirmed. All drones linked. Quantum carriers in position. We're a go. I stared at the incoming formation on the holomap. Their ships weren't just close. They were inside our atmosphere now, gunning toward population centers. Their logic was simple. Burn the cities first, bury the resistance second. But Earth had changed. We weren't prey anymore. Trigger Project Nemesis, I said. The words dropped like steel on stone. Beneath us, Valiant's hull shifted, groaned. Long dormant systems powered up. Quantum mines buried beneath the crust activated. Orbitally hidden drone swarms launched from sealed silos across every hemisphere. Satellite cloaks dropped. We were no longer hiding. We were hunting. The reaction from the Empire was immediate. Enemy signals, what the hell? Caden snapped, eyes wide as new threat icons filled the holomap. Dozens, hundreds, thousands, everywhere. From the Marianas to the Siberian frost, hidden Earth batteries opened fire, unseen for years, buried under ice and oceans and landmass. Kinetic rods ripped through the sky. Plasma bursts lit up the clouds. Satellite nukes detonated at strategic distances, frying everything with an Imperial transponder. And that was just the first wave. We'd lured them close, so close their ships couldn't maneuver. Their advantage, their massive scale, became their weakness. Valiant dropped Cloak and launched the first strike, a direct barrage into their command cruiser, a ship the size of Manhattan. The AI had already calculated every weak point, every outdated Imperial design flaw. 3 shots. Just 3. That was all it took. The command cruiser split in half. Half the fleet lost comms. Confusion spread like fire through their ranks. I watched it unfold, a slow death spiral as their own system began to choke. That's when Oathkeeper revealed itself, rising from behind Earth's curve like a ghost. It projected a secondary target lock onto their fleet-brain carriers. Empire protocols forced them to split forces again, divide, break, bury. The second wave was worse, for them. We launched swarm protocols. Hundreds of microdrones swarmed their capital ships, burrowing into hulls, infecting code. They weren't just weapons, they were viruses. Living code, designed by hackers raised on scraps and rage. Imperial tech began glitching. Auto turrets turned inward. Navigation systems failed. AI cores rebooted mid-battle. It was chaos. Beautiful, orchestrated chaos. But it wasn't without cost. They hit back. Hard. One of our orbital cannons in Johannesburg was destroyed in a kinetic barrage. A plasma lance took out Resolute's left hangar. 50 pilots gone before they could even launch. A shockwave cracked the upper crust above one of our mining cities. I saw the smoke rise on the feeds. Real people, real screams. We're holding but barely, Voss growled, blood leaking from a cut on his temple. They're adapting. Fast. They always do, I said, but they still don't understand what this is. Caden looked over. Then tell me, what is this? It's not a war, I said. It's an execution, ours or theirs, and I don't plan to die today. He nodded. And that's when the third part of the plan unfolded. We launched the Mimic Strike. Using prototype relay drives, we projected 10 copies of Valiant into orbit, perfect digital ghosts, each one with false weapon signatures and movement algorithms. The Empire responded like idiots, redirected nearly 30% of their active fleet toward the decoys. And we hit them from below. Oathkeeper's real strike came from Earth's surface. She'd never left atmosphere. Instead, she'd buried herself under a deep-sea launch trench, waited, and then fired 6 world-breaker railguns directly into the underbellies of their capital fleet. It was slaughter. I watched one of their dreadnoughts spin out of control, torn in half by internal core breach. Another went up in a cloud of ionized gas. The screams over comms weren't human. They were Imperial code voice, desperate, frightened, alien and ugly. We didn't cheer. We just worked. Because it wasn't over. Their fleet brain survived. Their AI core ship, the Immortal Grasp, was still functional, and it was angry. It activated something we hadn't seen before. Planet killers. 3 of them. Giant, obsidian-colored machines falling toward Earth like gods made of hate, each capable of vaporizing entire cities. Nothing could stop them once they started descent. Except us. I locked onto the lead one, ordered a full strike package. Caden stared at me. That thing has shielding we've never pierced. Then we find something sharper. Like what? I turned to him. You. He didn't blink. You want me to take a stealth fighter and... Number, I want you to fly the Prometheus prototype, the suicide craft. He froze. You said that was theoretical. You said it was unstable. It is. And you want me to pilot it? You said you'd do anything to make them pay. He nodded slowly. Then give them hell. The Prometheus wasn't a ship. It was a warning. Designed in the shadow of extinction, forged in secrecy, built only once. No backups, no manuals, one pilot, one flight, one purpose. To burn brighter than anything the Empire had ever seen, and take a piece of hell with it. Caden suited up without a word. The flight deck fell silent as he walked across the gantry toward the Prometheus. No music, no cheers, just the low hum of reactor spools warming and the bitter scent of ozone from overloaded capacitors. We all knew he wouldn't come back. Prometheus ran on a triple-layered singularity core. You didn't land it. You didn't eject. You went in hot, full throttle, and when it reached the target, you didn't just detonate, you ripped space apart. Caden stopped at the ladder, looked up at the cockpit, then turned to me. You sure this is the only way? He asked, voice calm. Steady. No, I said. But it's the only one that matters now. He nodded once. No tears, no theatrics. Just the quiet acceptance of a man who had already died in his head and was now running on loyalty. I want them to remember this, he said. They will. He climbed in. The cockpit sealed. Prometheus hummed like a devil waking from a long nap. The hull shimmered as its core spun up, warping the magnetic fields around it. The launch crew stepped back. Some of them couldn't even watch. A few crossed themselves. Others just stared. I watched from the control tower. Final targeting? I asked. Voss's voice came over the comms. Planet killer confirmed. Lead unit, descent velocity stable. If we don't stop it in the next 60 seconds, it hits Beijing. Send him, the gantry disengaged. Prometheus dropped like a stone, then surged forward with a sonic boom that cracked every window across the hangar. It vanished in a blur, punching through the atmosphere at velocities we weren't even supposed to survive. Trajectory locked. Target locked. Core temperature holding, came Caden's voice over the channel. I gripped the rail. The fleet brain responded immediately. The Immortal Grasp dispatched interceptors. Dozens of them. Ships with faster thrusters, smarter AIs, better guns. Didn't matter. Caden didn't dodge. He didn't weave. He went straight through. Prometheus's outer shell was lined with nano-reflective armor that bent lasers and deflected energy pulses. A few shots landed. One blew off a side fin. Another scorched his rear vector. He didn't flinch. Almost there, he muttered. Inside the control room, we watched every readout climb toward red. Core temp rising. Pressure mounting, the singularity pulsing like a heartbeat. 5 seconds to contact. The planet killer loomed massive in the feed, a floating tower of death, already humming with plasma charge, its cannons targeting the Earth's crust. Caden didn't shout a battle cry. He just said one word: payback. Then Prometheus struck. The explosion wasn't fire, it wasn't heat, it was absence. A hole punched through space itself. The sky folded inward. The planet killer didn't explode. It disappeared. Obliterated, unwritten from the laws of physics, the shockwave hit Earth seconds later. Sky turned purple, air cracked. Every ship within 200 kilometers dropped from the sky like puppets with their strings cut. Silence. On the comms, nothing. We lost Caden. But we saved Earth. I stood in the command pit, fists clenched, throat dry. The crew was still, eyes wide. They had seen sacrifice before, but nothing like that. No one moved. Voss stepped beside me. It worked, I nodded. But there were two more. That's when Earth responded. Not with ships, not with guns, with anger. All across the globe, resistance cells that had waited in the dark finally rose. Civilians took up arms. Blackout networks came online. Radio towers, thought long dead, began to broadcast. The Empire tried to control a people who had nothing left to lose. And it was a mistake. Guerrilla strikes hit Imperial supply ships. Hackers crashed their coordination links. Farmers opened sealed bunkers and deployed shoulder-mounted beam lances built from salvaged tech. Kids, actual kids, ran anti-drone routines from school laptops, bringing down swarm controllers. This wasn't Earth, the subject. This was Earth, the berserker. We took down the second planet killer using 2 stolen Imperial missiles and a precision drone strike. The third was never launched. They didn't get the chance. Because by then, the immortal grasp had lost its fleet brains, half its weapons, and now its edge. It tried to run. We didn't let it. Valiant gave chase. The final battle wasn't elegant. It was brutal. The grasp had deeper shields, thicker armor, more power than anything we'd ever faced. But we had something it didn't. Hate. Years of it. Generations. Burned into every bolt of Valiant's hull, every finger on a trigger, every last drop of sweat that built her. We tore into that ship like wolves. Drones rammed, cannons roared. Voss piloted a squadron straight through its docking bay. I saw him go in, didn't see him come out. The grasp fell piece by piece until its core ruptured, and then, at last, silence. No more Empire comms, no more war music over our skies, just clouds and a world still spinning. We won. But at what cost? Caden was gone. Voss was gone. Half the crew were names now etched into steel, and yet we stood, not as a subject, not as a slave, but as the one world in all of known space that said no, and meant it. Victory isn't clean. It doesn't come wrapped in applause or medals. It comes with silence, with bodies you can't bury, and memories that don't stop burning. The Empire was broken, its ships scattered, command structure shattered. The immortal grasp had been their last stand, their last monster, and we'd gutted it. But as I stood on the bridge of the Valiant, the silence that followed was heavier than any war drum. We were alive, but half the crew weren't. Caden, Voss, dozens more. Rooms were quiet now where laughter used to echo. Mess halls emptied too fast. Sleep became a stranger we chased in shifts, never catching it. There was no peace, only aftermath. The Earth Council, those bureaucrats who once begged for mercy, crawled out of their bunkers, wearing pressed suits and false smiles. Now they hailed us as heroes, tried to take credit for the victory they never believed in. They requested I attend a global summit in New Geneva. I declined. They insisted. I threatened to land the Valiant directly on the Council Dome. They shut up. Instead, I sent a message. A single-line broadcast across all frequencies. This war wasn't won by politicians. It was paid in blood. Remember that." I didn't need their parade. What I needed was to rebuild. Because while the Empire was wounded, it wasn't dead. We'd crippled their fleet, but their territories, outposts, and sympathizers still choked half the stars. Worse, our attack had sent a message to the rest of the galaxy. Earth wasn't weak anymore, and that meant we were now a threat. That's when the others started to come. The scavengers, the opportunists, the smaller empires and syndicates, licking their lips at a planet that had just blown up the biggest predator in the sky. They didn't care about justice. They wanted scraps, revenge, leverage. Within weeks, our long-range probes detected alien warbands skimming the edges of our solar system. Unknown designs, unknown intentions. But one thing was clear. They weren't here to make friends. They'd seen us bleed the Empire, and now they wanted to test our teeth. I gathered what was left of our leadership. Captains from Resolute and Oathkeeper, engineers, pilots, logistics officers, people who'd earned their place in blood and fire. We didn't speak like politicians. We spoke like survivors, like soldiers. Our enemies aren't just Empire now, I told them. They're everyone who thought we were food, and now they're coming. Then we feed them fire, someone muttered. A murmur of agreement followed. Cold, sharp, determined. We didn't mourn anymore. We prepared. We spent the next weeks converting the ruins of Earth's defense network into a fortress. Every colony, every mining platform, every orbital relay was turned into a gun platform. Drones were mass-produced by the millions. AI-driven reconnaissance ships were deployed to the far reaches of space. We didn't wait for the next war. We made sure we saw it coming. But something else stirred. A question. Now that we'd killed the lion, did we become it? The Valiant had power now. Earth trusted us more than their own governments. They called us protectors. But in whispers, some feared we were becoming something worse. That one day, we'd be the ones showing up in other skies, demanding submission. I felt it too. That creeping chill that comes when you stare too long into the abyss, and it starts to look back like a mirror. I didn't want power. I wanted Earth to never kneel again. But how long before that line blurred? How long before defense became domination? I stood alone on the upper deck one night. Stars sprawled above, half the solar system lit up by our new defense grid. I heard Caden's voice in my head. They'll remember us for what we do next. He was right, because history doesn't care who fired first, only who stood last. So we drew new lines. We created a fleet code. One rule: no conquest, no expansion, only defense. Any ship flying Earth's flag had to swear by it. Break that oath, and you were no better than the Empire. Some didn't like it. Some said it was weakness. I didn't care. We'd won the right to decide who we were, and I'd be damned if we turned into the thing we just destroyed. But then the message came. Intercepted from deep space. Unknown origin. It was a simple binary packet. Primitive. Old school. Not Empire, not alien, just 5 words. You're not alone. We remember. Attached was a set of coordinates, far beyond the rim, past known space. It wasn't a threat. It was a call. There were others out there, watching, waiting, maybe allies, maybe not. But the galaxy had heard our scream, and now someone was answering. The signal wouldn't stop. It repeated every 73 minutes. Same 5 words, same raw binary code, same coordinates, like a heartbeat echoing across space. You're not alone. We remember. We analyzed it every way possible. Encryption scans, spectrum shifts, historical data sweeps. No match to any known human comms or alien protocol. It wasn't a trap. Not the kind we knew, at least. It was older than any of us expected. Embedded within it was a harmonic frequency. Deep space coded into analog tones, like it came from a time when ships still used steel radios. One of our comms techs traced the origin algorithm back to Earth's early deep space programs, late 2010s, a forgotten mission, a sleeper probe sent beyond the rim during Earth's darkest resource crisis, back when we were choking on our own smog and killing over water. The probe was supposed to fail. But something, or someone, had answered it. Now the question wasn't what the signal was. The question was whether we dared respond. I brought it to the Fleet Council. Some wanted to ignore it, said Earth had enough enemies without following a ghost into deep space, said this wasn't the time for exploration. It was the time to fortify. Others feared a trap, said it reeked of old war psyops. But there was one voice that mattered more than any. Mine. I'm taking Valiant, I said. We'll jump. Alone. No backup. If it's a trap, better us than all of Earth. If it's real, we need to know. No one argued. They knew I wouldn't ask permission. We prepped in silence. Loaded rations, mapped jump coordinates, synced quantum nav threads. I picked a lean crew, just 20, the best I had left. Pilots, engineers, combat specialists, people I trusted, people who had nothing left to lose. We jumped at 0400 Terran time. The stars bent. Reality stretched. Then stillness. The outer rim was darker than anything I'd seen. No suns nearby, no planetary beacons, just a dead zone with nothing but whispers on every scanner. And then we saw it. At first it looked like a moon, round, cratered, floating dead in the void. But as we drew closer, details emerged. Too symmetrical, too deliberate. Antennas fused to rock, hull plates grown over natural stone, a hybrid, a ship and a tomb fused into one. We hailed it. No response. We pinged docking protocols. A signal bounced back. Barely a whisper. I suited up and boarded with 4 others. The airlock hissed open like it hadn't moved in centuries. Inside, darkness. Not dead, not alive, just waiting. We moved slow. Guns raised, lights cutting through the stale air. The ship was ancient, human design, but fused with something else, something alien. Smooth curves inside jagged industrial bulkheads, organic patterns growing from steel like infection. Then we found the first body, still in its suit. Frozen, chest caved in like something had bloomed inside. Its helmet bore an Earth flag. Old, faded. The kind used 100 years before our time. One of the engineers touched the chest plate, and a soft chime echoed through the corridor. The ship woke up. Lights flickered. Screens came online. And then voices, not one, hundreds. A chorus of human tongues, talking, screaming, whispering. Some were logs, memories. Others were simulations, constructs of the original crew, trapped in time. They spoke in loops. Some didn't even know they were dead. But one voice cut through it all. Calm, clear, real. Welcome, Earthborn. We froze. I am Sentinel, custodian of Arc 7. You are late. I stepped forward. You're AI? Yes, and no. I am what they made when Earth still dared to look outward, when you still believed the stars belonged to you. Who were they? Pioneers, the first Earth rebels, the ones who saw the Empire coming long before your governments did. They escaped, built this, hid it, and waited for Earth to rise again. My skin went cold. This ship, it wasn't a relic. It was a backup plan. Why did you call us now? I asked. Because the galaxy is shifting. The fall of the Empire was a signal. Others are stirring. Old threats, forgotten wars. And Earth will not survive alone. What do you want from us? Unity, memory, power. Then came the reveal. This wasn't the only arc. There were 7, scattered across deep space, each one hidden, each one seeded with technology Earth had long forgotten, pre-Empire inventions, dangerous ideas, forbidden science, the kind of power that could turn back empires, or create new ones. But Sentinel gave us a choice: activate the arc, or leave it buried. If we activated it, Earth would gain power beyond anything we'd known. Tech generations ahead. Weapons that could fold time, AI that could reshape reality. But we'd also wake everything else hiding in the void. Silent empires, long-dead civilizations, the ones the Empire was always afraid of. Earth would become a beacon and a target. I looked at my crew. No one spoke, because deep down, we all knew, we'd spent so long surviving. Now we had to decide, did Earth want to lead, or did we just want to live? There was no vote, no speeches, just silence. Each of us stood in the heart of Arc 7, staring at the core, an obsidian sphere taller than any of us, floating mid-air, pulsing with a low hum that felt more like a heartbeat than a machine. The AI, Sentinel, hovered on every screen in spectral form, a face formed from millions of flickering data points, always watching, always patient. "You must choose," Sentinel repeated, calm as ever. "Activate the Ark, and Earth ascends, or walk away and let history bury this." I looked at my crew, Sayers, our tech, hands shaking, eyes red from hours of decoding the Ark's schematics. He knew what was in this place, what it could do. "Sir," he whispered, "if we wake it, we become something else. Not just survivors, not rebels. We become dangerous." "That's the point," muttered Lennox, our tactical officer. He'd lost 2 brothers in the war with the Empire. "We've been prey for too long." Mara, our engineer, quiet, precise, always the pragmatist, shook her head slowly. "We have no idea what waking this thing really means. This isn't power. This is Pandora's box with a warhead inside." But I wasn't looking for consensus. I was looking for clarity, because it wasn't just a tactical choice, it was a moral one. Power changes people. Empires rise not from need, but from the hunger to never feel helpless again. And I knew myself, knew the weight in my fists, the rage that still lived in my chest every time I thought of Caden, of Voss, of the millions who died because Earth had been weak. I wanted this. God help me. I wanted it. But I needed to know what that would make us. "Sentinel," I said, voice low. "What exactly is inside this Ark?" The AI didn't blink, didn't flinch. Technology predating the Empire, human-designed, abandoned out of fear. Systems once considered too unstable, too dangerous. Prototypes that altered biology, manipulated time, bent physics, all preserved here, unused, untested. I felt the weight of that. "You're saying we could use it to, what, defend Earth?" "Yes, and much more. Terraform systems in hours, generate artificial fleets, reconstruct dead ecosystems, even extend life. But all of it carries risk, because knowledge never comes without consequence." Mara stepped forward. "And what happens if we leave it? What if someone else finds it?" Sentinel paused. "Then Earth becomes prey again." That sealed it. Because no matter what we feared inside this Ark, it was nothing compared to being at someone else's mercy again. No more chains, no more blockades, no more being outgunned by self-righteous tyrants. I walked toward the console. A black pedestal rose from the floor as I approached. No buttons, just a circle of light. I placed my palm in it. "Identity confirmed," Sentinel said. "Authorization, full release." The lights dimmed, the core spun, then everything changed. The Ark came alive. Panels unfolded from walls like petals opening. Lights pulsed in rhythms I couldn't understand. Ancient scripts, long-lost Terran code, flooded our HUDs. Massive data streams poured into our systems. Blueprints, coordinates, protocols. Entire libraries of forbidden science uploaded in seconds. Every ship we'd ever built, obsolete. Every weapon we'd ever fired, child's toys. We stood in the tomb of our own future, and we'd just kicked the door open. Then came the pulse. A shockwave burst from the Ark. Silent, invisible, but undeniable. Our scanners went haywire. The Valiant, waiting in orbit, sent emergency comms. "What the hell was that?" Lennox asked. "Beacon," Sentinel replied. "Activation cannot be hidden. It is a signal, a marker. For who?" "For everyone." My stomach sank, because that was the price. Not just power, but exposure. We hadn't just leveled up. We'd painted a target on Earth so bright, so loud, every eye in the galaxy would see it. It didn't take long. 2 hours after activation, long-range sensors on Valiant detected movement. Multiple ships, unknown configurations, not Empire, not human, alien, old. Their design was nothing like the sleek Imperial vessels we were used to. These things were asymmetrical, jagged, alive-looking, like creatures turned into warships. No communications, no ID, just movement, fast, precise, deliberate, closing on our position. "How many?" I asked. "4 confirmed," came the reply from Mara, her voice taut. "More in the dark. We had a decision. Stay and fight with Valiant, knowing the Ark couldn't move, and risk losing everything. Or abandon it. Number. Not abandon. Defend it." I called in Oathkeeper and Resolute, left relay traps across deep space to lure off pursuit, activated every defense protocol the Ark had. Turrets, drones, even internal shielding that made the thing nearly invisible on standard spectrums. But I knew it wouldn't be enough. They weren't coming for war. They were coming to reclaim. "These things out there," I told my crew. "They knew about us. Maybe even before the Empire. And now that we've lit the match, they'll come running." "Then we burn them," Lennox said. And that's what we did. The first ship arrived within the hour. It didn't hail us. It didn't warn us. It just fired. A plasma beam lanced through the darkness, carving a chunk from Valiant's left wing. We retaliated, unleashed a barrage that would have cracked an Imperial dreadnought in half. The thing shrugged it off, not because our guns were weak, because its skin bent light, refracted energy, adaptive armor, tech even the Ark barely understood. But the Ark fought back. On its own. Dozens of Ark turrets emerged from hidden platforms. They fired beams so sharp they cut through space-time. One struck the alien ship dead center, pierced it. The thing twisted, screamed, not through speakers but into our minds, like its death was something it wanted us to feel. The others fell back. They weren't invincible, just old, arrogant, and now afraid. We survived the first wave, but it wouldn't be the last. Earth was no longer hidden. We'd awakened something that changed our place in the galaxy forever. And I couldn't help but wonder. Had we just become the very thing we once feared? The second wave didn't come in guns blazing. It came with silence, dark shapes lingering just beyond sensor reach. Ships with hulls like obsidian, cold and patient. They didn't fire, didn't respond, they just watched. Like predators sizing up a wounded animal that had grown fangs. I stood in the command pit of Valiant, reading every scan, every heat signature, every anomaly. They had technology beyond us, beyond even the Ark, adaptive camouflage, reality-folding movement, and worse, they didn't show fear, only restraint. "We're being measured," Mara muttered beside me. "They're waiting to see if we bleed again," Lennox added. "No," I said, jaw tight. "They're waiting to see what we become." Because the second we activated Arc 7, we hadn't just called to allies or enemies. We'd rung a bell the galaxy had forgotten, and now they wanted to know if we were a threat or a mistake. 3 days passed. Tension thickened across Earth's fleet. Oathkeeper and Resolute floated in synchronous orbit with Valiant, but the crews barely slept. We doubled patrols, hardened our encryption, and finished integrating the last of the Ark's systems. Tech so advanced it rewrote half of what we knew about propulsion, shielding, and power. We had weapons now that could melt moons, and still, we hesitated. because we knew what it meant to be them. The Empire. The Predator. We'd lived under their boot. Now we wore the armor. The line between defender and dominator had never been thinner. That's when Sentinel spoke again. "Detection," it said in that cold, smooth voice. "Unidentified signal. Close range." We checked every frequency, found nothing. Then Lennox noticed it. An audio-only feed, buried in static. No language, just tones, rhythmic, calculated like a puzzle. Sayers cleaned it up. And then we heard it. A voice. Male, low, rough, not human, but not entirely alien either. We remember Earth. It wasn't the same as the beacon. It was personal. We watched your world burn, watched you crawl, watched you rise. And now, we wonder. Do you seek justice or conquest? It wasn't a question. It was a warning. I stood, grabbed the mic, and answered. "We seek peace, but we'll never kneel again." Silence. Then you are like us. My stomach twisted. Like us? "What are you?" I asked. No answer. Instead, a single ship approached. Slow, unarmed, unshielded. A vessel unlike the others, scarred, pitted, old, carved with symbols that looked both ancient and familiar. The closer it came, the more I realized. It was part human. Fragments of old Terran ships in its hull, designs from the early Resistance era. It was a ghost ship, a relic held together by something else. They hailed us again. Audio only. "A gift," the voice said. "Knowledge, memory. The price of survival is understanding." Then the ship powered down. We boarded it. Inside, no crew, just data. Thousands of files, logs, messages, footage. What we saw rewrote history. Earth hadn't been alone in its suffering. The Empire hadn't just conquered our world. They'd wiped entire species from the stars. Civilizations older than ours, crushed before we could even launch satellites. But some had survived, gone dark, vanished, waiting, watching, and building. This ship was from them, a coalition of survivors, fragmented across galaxies, united only by one belief. The Empire will fall, and something worse will rise in its place unless we choose differently. We were their test, their tipping point. Earth, the last world to rise from the ashes of subjugation, the one species arrogant and desperate enough to awaken power buried for centuries. We were the spark, and the match. Back on Valiant, I stood before the bridge crew, tired and wired, fire burning in my chest. "We have two choices," I told them. "Use this tech to rebuild Earth. Keep the power, guard it, protect ourselves, and hope no one comes knocking." Mara nodded. "And the other?" "We use it to unify, not conquer, not rule, but create something new, something that doesn't kneel and doesn't enslave." Lennox frowned. "Sounds like a dream." "Maybe. But the alternative is the galaxy goes back to the way it was, empire after empire choking the stars." He didn't argue. He knew I was right. So we made a decision. We called every Terran colony, every outpost, every resistance cell still holding out in deep space. We told them what we found. We gave them the choice. And Earth answered. Not with fear, not with greed, but with fury. We began the integration of ARC-7's systems across all fleet assets, upgraded every satellite, every transport, every mining vessel. We shared blueprints, spread power evenly. No one government owned it. No one army held the codes. The fleet became united under one banner, not of Earth alone, but of remembrance. We called it the Phoenix Accord. One rule: no empire, no throne, no chains, only vigilance, only resistance. We reached out to the survivors behind the gift ship, built channels, shared our data, and one by one they responded. Voices from the dark, hidden enclaves, species thought extinct, broken fleets, fugitives. They saw Earth not as a threat, but as a chance, a world that remembered pain, and refused to cause it again. But peace doesn't come free. And as the days passed, new threats stirred. Not just from outside, from within. Some Terran factions wanted more. Power for power's sake, weapons unleashed, boundaries ignored, ethics buried. One of our own, a fleet commander named Harlan, tried to hijack an arc relay, said Earth should lead the stars, said peace was a myth only the weak clung to. We confronted him at the orbital defense platform near Titan. He brought 30 ships. I brought 10. And still he lost, because he forgot something. Fear doesn't build loyalty. Memory does. We stripped his command, jailed him in a cryocell, not for revenge, but to send a message. We will not become tyrants, not again, not ever. The galaxy watched, and for the first time in centuries, it paused. Because somewhere, in the ashes of a ruined planet, something impossible had happened. Earth had bled the Empire, found the past, challenged the void, and instead of turning into the next monster, it chose restraint. But I knew it wouldn't last. There would be more wars, more empires, more tyrants. That's what the galaxy does. It forgets, and it burns. But not us, not this time. We'd built something different now, not a utopia, not a kingdom, a promise, forged in silence, carried in steel, written in blood. They say history is written by the victors. But that's not true. History is written by the survivors, the tired, the broken, the scarred, the ones who crawled through ash with blood in their mouths and fire in their eyes, carrying names they could never say again. I survived. And so did Earth. But we didn't come out whole. We came out changed. The Valiant never returned to orbit. After the formation of the Phoenix Accord, we decommissioned her as a warship, turned her into a museum above the old Indian Ocean, not for tourists, not for glory, for memory. Every bolt in her hull still sings with ghost voices. Every corridor whispers names of the lost. And I walk them sometimes, alone, boots echoing in silence. I visit the old command pit. Stand at the railing where I gave my first order to fire. I stare at the cracked panel where Caden punched the override to launch Prometheus. I press my hand against the blast-scorched floor where Voss bled out during the grasp assault. And I remember. Not because I want to, because I have to. Peace came slowly. At first, it felt like pretending, like waiting for another boot to drop, another empire to rise, another predator to sniff us out. But months passed, then a year, then 2. The survivors of the Grasp conflict formed the Accord Council. Not leaders, custodians. No one wore medals. No one used titles like Admiral or President. We were all just pieces of the machine now, different parts of a broken species learning how to move again without hurting itself. Earth rebuilt. Not like before. Not with towers of glass and cities choking in light. We built slow, smaller settlements, decentralized tech, clean energy, reclaimed land. Some colonies didn't want to rejoin. They had their own scars. We let them go. No force, no guilt, just a handshake and an open channel if they ever needed help. We kept the Phoenix fleet small, enough to defend, never enough to invade. And the Ark? We didn't open the other 6, not yet. Sentinel said they'd wait. And I believed him, because we weren't ready to hold all that power. Not while some of us still wanted to use it for leverage, not while old instincts still lingered like rust on our bones. But we studied it, trained a new generation, not in war, but in memory, in ethics, in restraint. And when one of the old alien watchers, the Obsidian ships from the Rim, returned 2 years later, they didn't come with guns. They came with an offer, a seat. At their table, a council of the forgotten. Species who had survived their own empires, their own genocides, their own falls, They didn't trust easily, but they'd seen us bleed the Empire, seen us rise, and seen us not turn it into another throne. That meant something. I didn't go. I sent Mara. She'd earned it. She returned 3 months later with a datapad filled with coordinates and one message. We are not the first. But we might be the last chance the galaxy has to get it right. And I believed her. Now? Now I live in the highlands above New Kilimanjaro, a quiet place. No tech hum, no gun towers, just wind and sky and the occasional flyover from drone patrols I barely hear anymore. Children laugh here. That's how I know it's real. Sometimes they find me, ask who I was, what I did. They call me commander, hero, architect. I let them talk. But when they leave, I sit with the truth. I was just a man who got sick of kneeling, who got tired of burying friends, who saw what happened when you let fear become law and power become gospel. I didn't win a war. I survived a scream and turned it into a signal that said, no more chains, no more silence, no more pretending we're too small to matter, because Earth was never small. We were just quiet for too long. Now? Now the galaxy listens when we speak, not because we're loud, not because we're powerful, but because we earned it with scars and smoke and sacrifice. And maybe, just maybe, that's what victory really means. Not the moment the enemy falls, but the first time you look at a sky without waiting for fire, and see only stars